Hey everyone, welcome to Making Mulligans Do, and in this tutorial we'll be making a simple leather catch-all. This project is a perfect start to get into leather working. It's simple enough not to require many tools, while teaching the basics necessary for leather working. Here's my current catch-all. It's done its job, it just seems to collect clutter. Every compartment is filled with junk. I just want something simple to collect my everyday essentials, my wallet, phone, and keys. I think it's time for an upgrade, so let's get started. So here's what we need to get started. X-Acto knife, thread, awl, stitching irons, needles, ruler, hole punch, edge beveler, some kind of conditioner, the leather, a dime, a branding iron, a burnisher, and some kind of burnishing agent, and a punching mat. So we've got our piece of leather, and now we have to make the cuts to fold into edges. We can either measure out the cuts ourselves, or use a template from my website, makingmulligansdo.com. I have the link to the template down below in the description. For the template, simply cut and round over the edges as indicated. If you're measuring out the cuts yourself, first decide how big of a tray you'd like. For this one, I want an 8" by 8" tray. Now for measuring out the cuts yourself, simply decide how big of an edge you'd like. I want a 1" tall edge, so I'm going to add an extra 1/4 of an inch to account for any bending of the leather. Cut out the piece of leather using the measurements decided. For my 8" by 8" tray, I'll be cutting out at 9 1/4 by 9 1/4 square. With our square, measure out the edge dimension on the piece of leather. Mine was 1 1/4 inch. There needs to be 2 large flaps and 2 small flaps. Make sure it's symmetrical. Two large flaps, 2 small flaps. At the end of the cuts, add a hole to prevent the cut from progressing any further. Now let's round over the edges using a dime as a guide. After all the cuts have been made, bevel the edges. I'm going to bevel just the outer edges and not the inner flesh side, as I think it will give it like a nicer, cleaner, simpler look. Now at this point, you can decide how to attach your flaps together, either with snap caps or by stitching. I'm looking for something a little bit more permanent, so I'm going to go with stitching. For stitching, fold each flap how they'll be attached. So here you have your large flap, here's your small flap. The large flap will be the outermost flap, like this. Now determine how far from the edge you'd like your stitching to be from that flap. I like it closer to the edge, so I'm gonna go about 1/4 inch from the edge. Now all you have to do is measure 1/4 inch from the edge, create the line, and then punch. So once all the outer flaps have been punched, fold the edges how they'll be attached and transfer the outermost stitching holes onto the smaller flaps. Using this little clip to help out. Really doesn't do anything. Here's the time to dye the leather if you prefer to change the color. I want the leather to patina naturally with wear and tear, so no dye necessary. So let's just burnish the edges and then condition the leather. All that's left to do is saddle stitch the edges together. Before we do that, I'm gonna wet the edges right along here where it's gonna be creased and fold it over with a ruler. Just gonna take some water, run it along where it's gonna be folded, just to help the leather bend a little bit. Use a ruler where the crease is going to be. There. To start the saddle stitching, we have our small flap and our large flap. Make sure the large flap is on the outermost. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start 3 stitches back right here, going down 2, then come back. So basically these 2 will get a double stitch, run all the way up to the top, over the edge, and then 2 down, and then I'm going to tie it off in between the pieces of the leather. Now for this part, I'm going to put it into the first lip. You can see that sticking out right there. This is how I'm going to tie it off. Back side, same thing. One more. Took that away. There you go. Now do it to all four sides. Feels like something's missing. There we go. And with that little bit of effort, we've made a catch-all to collect our everyday essentials. If you found something of value in this tutorial, please make sure to hit the like button. If you'd like to see more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next one.